Hello, my name is Sebastian, and with me I have Abby, Isabella, Alex, and Lexi. We have been discussing the topic of the death penalty, and we have decided that the death penalty is not justifiable. So, starting with the history of the death penalty dates all the way back to colonial times in 1608, where the first execution occurred in Virginia. And at one point in time, the death penalty was abolished in 1972 with the Furman versus Georgia case, in which the Supreme Court voted 5-4 that the death penalty was a cruel and unusual punishment. But it was later reinstated in 1976. And as time has proven, more and more people are against the death penalty, with 19 states having abolished it.
The legislators of our country are the people who are representing our political beliefs. And even though it is called capital punishment, it is sanctioned at a state level because there are various levels or various perspectives and viewpoints within the United States. So you can't have full representation or no representation. You can't be all for or all against the death penalty, which is why we have to have the individual states coming up with the decision to enforce or abolish the death penalty. Now, the two major political parties are the Democrats and the Republicans, and when the death penalty was first established, they both had pretty equal support, but as time has gone on, the Democrats have been lessening their support for the death penalty. In states like Nebraska, the death penalty has been in absence for 20 years, and the governor, Pete Ricketts, was attempting to veto a bill that would keep the death penalty in abolition. But the state senators in Nebraska overruled him, and the death penalty is not present in Nebraska. In Ohio, the state senator Edna Brown abolished the death penalty in favor of not wanting to execute somebody who could potentially be innocent. Senator Edna Brown wanted to stay safe instead of sorry. In California, a man named David Von Drell wrote a Time article that deemed it unconstitutional for somebody to practically live on death row, as they would be spending an immense amount of time before exoneration, if possible. For these reasons, the legislators of our country do not support the death penalty.
So, in capital cases, the jury are the people who determine whether the defendant is guilty or innocent, and then the judge determines the sentence. In past cases, the jury members come in with a prior view based on their morals and beliefs, and if they are already against the death penalty, then they're obviously going to have that bias and making the case unfair. Their views before they set foot in the courtroom are important to the way that they will end up ruling the decision. Sources say that the jury selection is not diverse. The selected people tend to be ones that are not entirely opposed to capital punishment. So that being said, the majority of the people on these juries are white males, and according to a Duke Law student, she did a research project that showed and proved that females and African Americans were normally more against the death penalty than white males. And then the inside of a case, the lawyer of the defendant has the opportunity to actually dismiss one of the jury members. Actually, they can dismiss as many as they'd like with the approval of the judge. But then if the judge keeps a jury member that already has a bias, then that case will then turn into an unfair ruling. And then the jury, whether they determine the life of that person to be, or their sentence to go to the judge to be guilty or innocent, they have to go home and remember that and know that every night, and that's a lot of pressure and a lot of guilt.
So the taxpayers, or the common people of America, are essentially the ones that are going to be paying for the death penalty. It does cost more money to execute someone. Paying for the death penalty is not beneficial to the taxpayers. American Civil Liberties Union says that the death penalty is a waste of taxpayers' funds and has no public safety benefit. Taxpayers would rather have their money go to education or healthcare. The Cost of Death Penalty website says that counties manage these high costs by decreasing funds for highways and police and by increasing taxes. Due to the death penalty, taxes are being raised and it is taking away from infrastructure reconstruction. Taxpayers would rather have money go to the education or the healthcare. Therefore, it is ethical for the taxpayer or common people of America to be against the death penalty.
So the graph we have here shows the violent crimes in the United States per 100,000 people, and as you can see, the crime rate has increased tremendously from around 1970 to today. Even as you can see, even after the death penalty was reinstated, it has increased. This goes to show that the death penalty is not a deterrent to crime.
So, Ann Coleman states that the last thing we need as a community is the state creating more victims. Coleman is the mother of 2 children who were murdered, and the murderer was put on death row. Various families have come forth to say that they would rather the murderer be sentenced to life without parole, without a chance of parole, rather than be put on death row, because the death penalty destroys family bonds and forces the families into mourning. It's taking away from the jobs of the families due to them having to appear at sentencings, and it causes a distraction throughout the households of America. Therefore, the victims' families do not justify the death penalty.
So the death penalty is a very controversial form of punishment. It was reinstated and abolished at one point in time, and as you can see, we have shown that there are various perspectives that show that it is not justified.